Hello everyone. In today's video we'll be looking at a scenario where civilization starts over. And in the last episode, first of all there was no sound for some reason, don't know what happened, but we saw the giant Middle Eastern war which left the square team destroyed. I mean, the square team doesn't exist anymore. But let's start here. So going to the ideology map, you can see all the things that happen. I don't know if Iraq was a dictatorship before the war, but they are now. This new Persian country is a dictatorship. And to all the ideologies real quick, there's actually a few democracies. First of all the puppet states are democracies, but they're kind of just ruled by the country that rules them. Japan's actually a full-on democracy. There's blue countries too. And Ukraine is actually, they're a constitutional monarchy. They have a king, but he doesn't have power, and it's the government that rules. So I guess a democracy. So let's begin with the video. First of all, moving to Siberia, we're going to have a lot of the continent, well, not a lot of it, but parts of Siberia will start being explored. As the year is currently 1732, they can maybe make the equipment to go into these cold areas of Siberia. So they go in, and after a few years, all the sand is discovered, which is always nice, like discovering more land, so it's more land to take. Speaking of taking land, we're going to have this orange country actually take land, and they're actually going to take quite a bit of land. The orange country wants a very large country, so taking all this unclaimed, I said Central Asian land, this unclaimed Siberian land will of course get you a large country, even though they're already a very large country. But in the end, they end up taking all of this land here, which will probably give them horrible borders. Yeah, but it'll probably just fix itself in the next episode. Speaking of expanding, the most favourite country to expand ever, Russia, they're going to be expanding a ton. And Russia expands all this, but Russia is actually going to mean two wars in this episode. The first war, so this Baikal country, I'm just going to call it Baikal, but they don't like all this Russian expansionism, so they're actually going to be declaring war on Russia now. Don't know why they are. If I go to the power rankings real quick, it's actually very important with the power rankings, if I can find it. There we are. So I'm going to list out all the power rankings. This is military, so number 1 in the world is China, 2 is India, not really surprised, 3 is Sweden, 4 is Brunei, which is very surprising. 5 is the blue team, the Anatolian one. 6 is Egypt, and I can't speak. Egypt has actually fell a lot. It used to be top 2, but now they're all the way at number 6. And I'll explain that later if I remember. 7 is Russia, and they've gone up a lot. 8 is Indonesia, the red one. 9 Liberia. 10 is Germany, but they've gone up a lot since they've found all this gold in the Americas. And 11 is the red team right over here. So yeah, back over to this war. Since Russia hasn't put a lot of troops here, and since these troops are designed for the cold, we're actually able to go in. Now, I know there's no major cities over here, but over to the major cities there. As soon as Russian troops move out from this major city, yeah, these guys are just fully pushed out of Russian territory. Baikal had a good start, but it's not enough, and Russian troops will just flood into Baikal, capturing this major city, and yeah, it's not going well. We even see the Mongols join the war, as they want to try reform their old empire, and getting this land will definitely help. So they move in. This country here would join the war, but I'm not going to make them because it'd make the borders horrible. Eventually the capital and the entire lake Baikal falls, and with this Baikal surrenders, and we can look at this peace treaty. So in the treaty, Baikal no longer exists. They're split up between the Mongols and Russia. And Russia is very happy, but I'll come back to Russia later because of another war they'll be in. Anyways, moving to the Americas. In the last episode, not much of the Americas was discovered because a lot of countries, like the Mongol War, were just monitoring I can't speak. A lot of countries, especially European countries, were monitoring I can't speak. The Great Middle Eastern War. And now that it's over, these countries can get back to discovering parts of the Americas. So, with a lot of money, we see, I almost said Gibraltar. Yeah, see all of Quebec, almost said Iraq for some reason. All of Quebec is discovered, as well as parts of this island, but it's getting very cold. This part of Canada, of course, is very cold and there's no one living here. Anyways, these islands are discovered. Yeah, I don't know why. They just are. Parts of Greenland are also being discovered, but just like in Canada, it's too cold and no one really lives here, so the discovery will be stopped. As people are freezing to death, even in the summer. Anyways, the coastal areas of America are a lot easier to discover because a lot of mountains over here. I think the Rockies are here, I don't know, I don't care to be honest. So yeah, they go around any lakes that are here, and the countries discover all this land over here. And up north, go away, wave browser. This entire lake is known about, as well as this entire area. So a lot of the Canadas, Americas, it's actually been discovered, which is very nice. Anyways, to see what all the countries take, that made no sense. France will actually start expanding, and they kind of make a deal with England saying they will take all of Quebec and nothing else. So in the treaty, France gets all of Quebec, but in return they can't take any more of North America now. The treaty only said North America, and they can move south to South America, but they won't be doing just that yet, at least. France takes a lot of these surrounding islands, which are technically part of Quebec. I don't know if they are actually, I'm just going to say they are. And England, they kind of almost cut off from Britain, cutting them off. So they will finally make their giant claim on the Great Lakes. Now, Britain didn't take all of the Great Lakes because England made a claim. They don't want to fight a war, but England will start making claims, and they take all of this land over here, which is a very nice amount of land. Britain will make a treaty with England saying they will not take any more of the Great Lakes past this line here. So, I almost said Quebec. I can't speak. Britain will be taking all land up here, and they'll also be taking a lot of the inland areas as well, making a treaty with Galicia to expand this much. Galicia also gets all of this land in the treaty too, and they will start thickening out their Mexican claims, Gulf of Mexico claims, and they actually take all this land here, which that isn't enough. They look kind of weird with this area here being so thin, or this area here being so fat, I guess. So I'm gonna make the Galicians take all this land over here, which looks a lot better. The Lime team in Mexico, that made no sense. The Lime team will also start a giant expansion, and they will take all of this land over here, which is a ginormous claim, I guess. And yeah, these European countries starting to make their colonies extremely large. Moving to the South American part, that makes no sense. Galicia, with all the gold they're finding, will start discovering new lands. They still don't meet up with the Germans, but they're getting close to. Speaking of the Germans, they also discover land, and they don't meet up with the Galicians, but they do go into the more inner areas of South America, finding out there's a giant rainforest over here. But the Germans, they're not really willing to go into the rainforest. Same with every other country. Sorry, I burped. And they discover all this. The Lime team will make more claims, this time into South America, and they end up claiming all of this coastal area right over here, as well as some inland areas, because I'm finding some very bad borders. But this goes to them. Portugal, I haven't talked about Portugal in a bit. They're also expanding. they're trying to go into the rainforest because they're the only country in the Americas that are willing to discover rainforest land. So they will claim over own this land over here, making a treaty with Germany to not really claim any land over here. So they end up taking all of this over here, which is some horrible borders. Speaking of Germany, I will also make a claim. I don't know why I'm saying claim, they just take the land. And after a few years, the Americas look like this, which has actually been very filled in. It's been filled in very fast. Sweden's not going to take out here. Over to India, they want more land, and Pakistan is no longer in the Square Alliance, but they're not going after Pakistan. Tibet cuts them off from getting land up north in the Himalayas. I might just call it Himalaya because it sounds cooler. Yeah, so Himalaya. Himalaya is weak, nothing compared to India, and one day they will get invaded by India. So Indian forces, this is not the Himalayan areas over here, but like up north it is. So in the lesser mountainous areas, Indian forces will flow into Himalaya. I'm just gonna call it Tibet, and they take one of these major cities, but at this point they're actually starting to get to the Himalayas. So they kind of start some special Tibetan troops, special forces will actually make some very large spearheads out, capturing towns, villages, just any major areas that are not highlighted on this map. And they actually capture a lot of villages and towns, which does help them a bit, but eventually India will send more troops to the front line. These Indian troops are going to destroy these special forces of Tibet. And eventually, after getting past some mountains, they get to the capital, and a very fierce battle is fought. But in the end, India captures the capital of Tibet. They also move out and capture this major city over here, and Tibet will surrender. And we can look at this peace treaty. In the treaty, Tibet is destroyed, and yeah, India takes, and India will also make a new colony in Africa because they lost this colony to the green team over here. So they make a new colony connecting up with this country over here, which modernizes it a lot. And their colony ends up looking something like this over here, which is nice, I guess. Moving to China. China is currently the strongest country in the world, and they've been doing some stuff. They really don't like this black country over here, and they just want the land because it'd be easier to, that is the wrong layer, it'd be easier to connect up with all their land over here because they're not nice, border just kind of looks weird. So, looking at the major cities, there's a very important major city on the border that China took, which is this one right here, that have better connection to their land over here. Because in the south, it's really not very connected up. So, China will send forces right into the black country. They captured a major city and immediately offer peace. Yeah, that's how much they want this major city. But the black team doesn't answer the peace because they're actually pushing back. But China is a lot stronger. This country is the 17th strongest country in the world, but isn't liked by any of their neighbours. So China moves in fully. Also, any of their neighbours, Vietnam does not like this guy. This guy, the black team stole their old land and their old capital, which, they didn't steal their old capital, it's right here, but it's very close on the border, and they stole some old land. So Vietnam will also send forces into the black country, and one thing's after another, can't speak, the capital falls, and with this, the black country surrenders. And there's actually been a ton of wars. I'm gonna do one more war, but we can look at this peace treaty. So in the treaty, the black team no longer exists, which is kind of sad. The black team's been here, I think, since episode 9, I think. So it's kind of sad they're gone, but there was never really a major player. There's just kind of a roadblock between Vietnam and China, and now they're gone, so it doesn't matter. Anyways, we actually seen more of the Sahara starting to be discovered. At this time, I think more of the Sahara would start to be discovered. If they can make the technology to go into Siberia, they can go into the Sahara. And in the end, all of this land starts to be discovered. Now, I'm going to end the video soon. I don't want this video to be longer. So, before that, let's go over to Australia. Australia, a lot of the west side has been discovered, but with this Australian country being right here, they're going to start discovering the east side of Australia, and they actually find it to be better than the west side. I think it is, at least, I don't know. So they discover a lot of land, and eventually parts of the inland of Australia will even be discovered as, I don't know, they just discovered the inland, and they discover all of this over here, which is a ton of land and a lot of inland areas. Now, blue Australia, because I guess just Australia, because they're the only Australian nation. They're not the only country on Australia, but they're the only Australian nation. Will take a ton of land. They don't like other countries being on their island. They think only they should rule Australia. And, you know, not all of it, but they think only they should be on the island. So they're going to take a crap ton of land. These borders look horrible, but we'll have to do, unless I fix them, which I might. Anyways, they take all of this land, and like I thought, horrible borders. Let me try fix them. Yeah, it still looks horrible. Just give me a second. Hopefully this will make the borders look a lot better. You know what, it does, but I don't really like how this Australia looks. It don't matter, it'll fix itself later. And Indonesia will also start expanding. They make a deal with India saying they won't expand up to here, but in return they can take as much Australian land up here as they want. They guarantee they will help Indonesia in a war if they ever go to war with Australia. So yeah. India will also start an expansion. They don't expand as much, so they're not really focused on Australia, and they don't think it's much, but they expand that much. And for one last war, it will be with Russia again. So, Russia's puppet state, Finland. It's never wanted to be a part of Russia, obviously, if it wants to be a puppet state. So, they're going to do the sensible thing and break away. So, tons of groups, if there's major cities in Finland, there's two. These two major cities break away. They actually have a lot of support from the urban areas in the countryside, if there is any in Finland. And all of this land is taken. With Russia not expecting this, and their forces only just moving from Baikal, you have to go all the way through Siberia, or maybe the Mongols let them go through their country. I don't know. A lot of Russia's forces are about right over here because they're coming back to the mainland, because Ukraine is putting a lot of troops on the border. The Finnish forces will be able to cross into mainland Russia, and will start capturing Russian land. I'm just going to get rid of this red outline real quick, because it will look better. And the entire Finnish puppet state will just join up with the Finns. The leader in charge of the puppet state doesn't really like being a part of the puppet state, doesn't like being a puppet state, if not. So they will break away, and I know this isn't the colour of Finland, but it'll do for now. And they start going down the coast. Somehow they get ships, don't know where from. Yeah, I don't know where from. Sweden doesn't like the rising power of Russia, so they're helping them. They get some Swedish ships and make a landing over here. Now, these Russian forces are currently right over here. They're still making their way, but some Russian forces, like in St. Petersburg, will actually push back these Finnish forces. Yeah, even though they're very nationalistic, they're not much compared to real Russian forces. That's until Ukraine joins the war. Ukraine feels that if they don't do anything, Russia will invade them. So they join the war. and immediately captured this major city. And Russia was not expecting Ukraine to join. Ukraine wants to get land from the old empire before the plague. So, and Russia owns it, so they have to invade Russia. They spike out and capture this major city, and their goal is to get Kyiv, which I'm just gonna say Kyiv's there, even though it's not. So they make a spearhead out. In the meantime, they capture this major city, and this spearhead is actually going very good. Russian forces are engaging Ukrainian forces, but they're not doing so well. Eventually, Russian forces, when we moved from Finland, plus Ukraine is a traction stronger than the Finnish rebellions, and when these Russian forces arrive, I'm not gonna lie, Ukraine is not really anything compared to Russia. Even the black team could easily wipe out Ukraine. Ukraine's not weak, they're just weak. I don't know how I could have said that better. Russian forces will move into Ukraine, and after connecting up with the Black Sea, Ukraine will start to crumble. Crimea will try break away, but Russia doesn't want that, and they want Crimea because it's very important, so they take it. Also, Sweden isn't entering the war, but they're supplying the Finns a lot, and it's at the point where they've joined the war. And this Swedish aid will actually be too much, and Russia can't wipe out the Finns. They will start an invasion, but with some aid, the Finns will just push back, and this is like the Winter War. It's happening in winter. And eventually, Russia will just agree that they can't beat Finland, but they have to give up their puppet state. But in return, they get the green team, so goodbye green team. So you can look at this peace treaty. So goodbye Ukraine and hello Finland. Finland's back, but in exchange, Ukraine's gone, which is very sad. Ukraine, it's been here since episode 1. I did think I'd go to the Middle East, but not anymore. I'll save it for the next episode. So I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope it doesn't end up like episode 19 when there's just no sound. But if it does, I'll be sad. But I hope you've enjoyed it, and bye everyone.